January 8th, 2026. For most people across Oklahoma, it began like an ordinary winter morning. The air was cold, the highways were busy, children prepared for school while workers started their daily routines. Weather forecasts mentioned storms, but few residents expected anything truly dangerous. After all, tornado season in the United States usually arrived during spring. January was supposed to be quiet, but the atmosphere over America's Central Plains was beginning to change. Thousands of feet above the ground, powerful winds were colliding with warm, moist air traveling north from the Gulf of Mexico. Meteorologists monitoring weather systems across the country noticed something unusual forming over Oklahoma. The conditions looked more like April than the middle of winter. As the morning progressed, weather radars started detecting severe thunderstorms developing rapidly across western Oklahoma. The National Weather Service began issuing warnings. At first, most people paid little attention. Severe weather alerts were common in the region, but this storm was different. By the afternoon, dark clouds covered the sky across multiple counties. Strong winds pushed across highways and open farmland. Temperatures shifted suddenly as the atmosphere became increasingly unstable. Residents noticed the strange silence that often appears before violent storms. Then emergency sirens echoed across towns and rural communities. Meteorologists confirmed rotation inside several supercell thunderstorms. Tornado warnings spread quickly across Oklahoma as dangerous funnel clouds began descending from the sky. The first tornado touched down in a rural area west of Oklahoma City. At first, it appeared as a narrow funnel moving across open land. But within minutes, the tornado strengthened. Winds violently tore through farms, barns, electrical poles, and storage buildings. Pieces of metal roofing flew hundreds of feet through the air while trees snapped apart like sticks. Drivers traveling along highways suddenly found themselves trapped inside blinding rain and flying debris. Some abandoned their vehicles and ran toward nearby shelters. Others remained frozen in fear as the tornado crossed roads only seconds away. Inside nearby towns, families rushed into bathrooms, closets, and underground shelters. Parents covered their children with blankets while listening to the terrifying roar outside. Many residents later described the sound as similar to a giant freight train moving directly through their neighborhoods. As the storm system continued eastward, multiple tornadoes developed across central Oklahoma. One tornado struck a residential community with little warning. Roofs were ripped completely off homes. Windows exploded inward as debris smashed through walls. Garages collapsed while parked vehicles were thrown across streets and yards. Electricity failed across several areas as power lines crashed onto roads and buildings. Entire neighborhoods were suddenly left in darkness, while severe thunderstorms continued overhead. Emergency dispatch centers received hundreds of calls within minutes. People reported collapsed homes, trapped residents, overturned vehicles, and injured civilians. First responders attempted to reach damaged communities, but many roads were blocked by fallen trees, debris, and destroyed power infrastructure. Despite the dangerous conditions, rescue teams continued moving through the storm. Police officers, firefighters, and medical crews searched damaged neighborhoods house by house. Some residents were pulled from collapsed buildings, while others escaped moments before structures were destroyed completely. The tornado outbreak quickly became national news. Television networks across the United States interrupted regular programming to show live coverage of rotating storms moving across Oklahoma. Weather experts expressed concern about the unusual intensity of tornado activity during January. Winter tornadoes are relatively rare in the United States, but changing atmospheric patterns had recently increased the frequency of severe off-season storms. Throughout the evening of January 8th, 2026, tornado warnings continued across multiple regions. Meteorologists tracked dangerous supercells moving rapidly across the state while emergency sirens sounded repeatedly in affected towns. By nightfall, the situation became even more dangerous. Darkness made tornadoes nearly impossible to see. Heavy rain wrapped around several funnels, hiding them completely from drivers and residents. Many people only realized a tornado was approaching after hearing the roar outside their homes. One family later described watching their front windows shatter moments before losing power completely. They hid inside a small bathroom while debris crashed through the house around them. When the storm finally passed, much of their neighborhood had been destroyed. Across Oklahoma, emergency shelters filled with displaced families. Some residents arrived carrying only blankets and phones. Others had lost homes, vehicles, and personal belongings within minutes. Volunteers distributed food, water, and medical supplies while rescue operations continued through the freezing night. By early morning, the full scale of the destruction became visible. Entire sections of rural communities had been heavily damaged. Homes stood exposed to the winter air with roofs completely missing. Broken power poles lined highways while twisted metal debris covered roads and fields. Several schools and businesses also suffered structural damage. Emergency officials estimated that millions of dollars in property losses had occurred across the state. Meteorologists later confirmed that multiple tornadoes touched down during the January 8th outbreak, including several EF-1 tornadoes capable of producing winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Although stronger tornado categories often receive more attention, EF-1 tornadoes are still capable of causing major destruction, especially when they strike populated areas unexpectedly. For many Oklahoma residents, the timing of the outbreak was the most terrifying part. Tornadoes are expected during spring. People prepare for them mentally. But on January 8th, 2026, the disaster arrived during the middle of winter, catching thousands of families off guard. Weather experts later explained that a combination of warm Gulf moisture, unstable atmospheric conditions, and powerful upper-level winds created the perfect environment for tornado formation. The outbreak also reignited discussions about climate patterns and the increasing unpredictability of severe weather across the United States. In the days that followed, cleanup operations continued across affected communities. Heavy machinery removed debris from roads while utility workers restored damaged electrical systems. Volunteers helped families recover personal belongings from destroyed homes. Donation centers collected food, blankets, and emergency supplies for displaced residents. For survivors, recovery would take far longer than the storm itself. Some families lost nearly everything within a matter of minutes. Others continued struggling emotionally after witnessing the destruction firsthand. But despite the devastation, communities across Oklahoma came together. Neighbors helped neighbors clear debris. Rescue crews worked non-stop through freezing temperatures. Emergency shelters provided safety for families with nowhere else to go. The January 8th, 2026 tornado outbreak became a reminder of nature's unpredictability and destructive power. Even during winter, when most Americans least expect it, the skies above Tornado Alley can still produce violent and deadly storms. And for the people who lived through that terrifying night in Oklahoma, January 8th, 2026 would never be forgotten.